It has never been just a game.
Our test is in the stands.
History tells us these fields, courts, and victories have never been colorblind.
Because I'm a woman, you're going to take this away from me? That is not right.
Or devoid of politics.
You think he's got what it takes?
I hope so.
And you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
And we know this story didn't start by taking a knee.
No, this has nothing to do with race. I never said anything about race.
Race matters. It matters in everything, and if we say it doesn't, you're either naive or you're ignorant.
This month, we're going to peel back the layers.
Are we having those conversations with our teams?
We'll start by sitting down with high school coaches from the Seattle area.
I feel so helpless for these young ladies because they fought so hard.
And that's why I think these conversations are so important.
My name is Jenna Hanchu. I'll be asking the questions, but I'm no expert. My hope is that we can all learn something from these conversations on race and sports.
Thank you, Nia.
Listen to me, chips.
What kind of dip is that?
And celery.
You know, I don't eat everybody's food, just being honest. You know how you go to the cookout and you look and you like, that ain't mama's. I ain't doing that. I don't eat everybody's food. It's not personal. It's just I don't eat everybody's food.
You gonna take a little nibble? Serena, U.S. Open.
They did her absolutely dirty. Men, come at the refs pretty hard all the time, but you would never see them give that type of, take points away from a match.
To have to go through that experience, but then be bigger than the experience.
Yep.
Thank God for Serena.
In my opinion, the best refs are the ones you don't see.
Right.
So
Those are the best refs. Because,
So
and when that ref did that, he's trying to be the center of attention, not, really, a good official would have said, Ms. Williams, that's a warning, enough, let's play. Right. And just leave it at that.
Well, I think sometimes when we talk about race in sports, we talk about it just in the lens of kind of a Kaepernick kneeling or just in the lens of a Serena, but we don't talk about it on this level.
When I think about sports, and I think I coached at an inner city school. Cleveland is obviously predominantly African American, mixed with a few Asian girls. And, I reflect back on games that we played against, let's say, a Seattle Prep or a Holy Names, and you're looking at the foul count, and Cleveland has, 15 fouls in the first quarter, and the other team has 3, and you stop to ask the referee, hey, what are my girls doing? How do I make the adjustment? Your girls are the aggressor. So I remember the first time I heard that, I was thinking dang, I got a whole bunch of inner city kids, some African American girls, and this is how you view my players, as aggressors. This is a basketball game. How would you even use that term, aggressor? I was so offended.
What, you think you were able to use that as a life lesson for them?
Oh, life lesson, motivation. Because the thing is I try to tell my players that the sport, this is just preparing you for life.
Race matters. It matters in everything, and if we say it doesn't, you're either naive or you're ignorant. But I think it's a double negative when you're a man of color. You don't have to be a black man, but you could be a minority, or you could be someone of, not saying prestige, but someone of status. They always try to bring you down, always. So when we won and we were successful, we were cheaters. That's how they tried to knock our success, by putting the cheat line with us. It's the perspective of how they try to minimize your success. If I was a white guy that had the same amount of success and had the same amount of accomplishments, I'd probably be mayor by now. What Jamie's saying is so spot on, because we have to have those conversations. But the problem is we have to have those conversations when we go to certain schools. We have to have those conversations with our kids when they deal with law enforcement. The problem is we have to have those conversations.
I have had officials, I've had an official say to me before, you ain't buying us tonight. So, yeah, right. So it's the other side, right? Exactly. It's the other side, So it's and maybe that's just his way of saying hey, I'm taking care of my people tonight, right? As I listen to Joey and Jamie talk, we deal with the same. I'm on a field, and our situation is the ref telling me that we got the spoiled, entitled kid that just needs to toughen up and play the game, right? You know, so it's and so there is another side to it.
You know, you said you had some, you know, you have some black teens on your team and you have different ethnic groups. So how do you deal with the race conversation, being a Caucasian male, dealing with the state of our country? How do you go about having that conversation?
Yeah, so I guess I would flip it on you right away and I'd say, like, what does that look like for the Caucasian boy that sits on your team?
When we talk about the social injustices of what's going on in society, you don't see that Caucasian young male being killed. You know, you don't see them in the same situation.
What does it feel like that boy to sit in that locker room as the minority?
I mean, I guess, because I don't want to equate those as equal because they're not equal, and so I know that you were responding to that as if it was the other side, and those aren't equal, especially within society, right? And the path of that kid of color in the locker room is going to be very different than the path of the white kid, and so I guess to your point, in answering that question, what is that conversation that you are having with that kid of color? And are you aware of those societal differences?
I think I do a great job in relating with all of our kids, regardless of race, right? But if I'm not intentional about putting somebody partnering somebody with our kids on a day-to-day basis, that they can look at one another and identify with one another simply by their race in common, then I'm foolish in the way that we assemble our staff.
I'm always trying to have intentional conversations with all the different kids on my team, so I get a chance to learn more about their culture, and that's why I think these conversations are so important to have, because you don't know what you don't know until you have a chance to talk and learn it.
The education for me has been, you know, I've had such a hard time going like, well, where does racism, where does it exist? Because it's not present in my life, right? You know, and so it's been hard over the last couple of years because I don't, in my bubble, in my sphere that I operate in, there is no racism, right? But we're battling it all the time.
I wanted to go back to something you said, Jamie, which was when you were saying that when you grew up, it was like, here's the hoop, here's the ball, that's it. I wanted to talk about equity in sports, and especially within youth sports. What are the disparities that you all see within the youth sports world when it comes to equity in sports?
Say I coached at Cleveland, you know, most of the kids are from the inner city. Most of them come from single parent family homes, so they don't have the means sometimes for, you know, for a meal. They don't sometimes have a way even get to school, fresh clothes. So like as a coach, you're not playing only a role as a coach, you're like a mother figure, like you're the mentor, like you're making sure that they have everything that they need to succeed.
Jamie hit it on the head. You know, in the inner city, we struggle just for the bare necessities. You know, the pregame meals, shoes, you know, you are a mentor, you know, you are that crazy auntie or uncle, or, you know, a father or mother figure. You know, just to do the bare necessities to get your kids to practice is a huge thing.
I have a unique situation because I came from Mercer Island and now I'm in Kent, and they're like polar opposites. And so I know exactly what they're talking about. Now if I go back 2 years, I would be like, what are you guys talking about? Because at Mercer Island, I need this. Okay, got it. I need this, got it. I need this. You know, I had parents like, oh, you need how much? Okay, here's $5,000 check. And they would just help me out with whatever we needed, you know, with different things. Or, oh, these kids need this. Or here's you know.
Let's be nice.
And that's you know, that's Mercer Island. But now I'm at Kent, and you know, I think my first year there, I knew it was going to be different, but you know, everything they just talked about of like, I'm going through that same thing. Like, how do I fundraise? I never heard these stories at Mercer Island because everyone at Mercer Island has 2 parents and do well and here. But then I go to Kent, and it's like, okay, I have one mom and she's working 3 jobs, so I never see her. And I have to go home and babysit, so I can't get to practice today because I gotta pick up my 2 little brothers from elementary. Then I gotta make sure I meet my sister from middle school and make sure they're safe. And so it's just a totally different environment I'm in. And so to see that, it's, you know, I would definitely say it's more, you know, like I said, it's just economic based.
But this is what they've been doing in the private school sector or in the well-to-do sector for a while. This is what they're doing on the east side. the sport's driven by money. How do you go to 7-on-7s? It's $500 a pop. It's $250 a pop. If you don't have a budget, you can't do it. So if Coach Maul and Coach Ogata and everyone else are doing these 7-on-7s and these lineman camps and these clinics, and I don't have the budget for it now, I'm behind. Now my kids don't have the same opportunity to get better. So why is it that economics are driving the program's success? If you just look at it and you look at the schools on the east side, a lot of them are successful. It's not that they have better coaching or they have better stuff, but they just have more access.
Like Coach was saying about the disparities between the schools, that is a big, when a kid's able to get private coaching, that, it makes a huge difference. And they're able to get, nicer uniforms, nicer things, and all this other, little perks, and like the meals before games and all those things. I mean, that makes a huge difference in terms of how kids can perform. And, like most of the time we had a nutritionist that would come in and work with the kids on, with each kid to make sure they were eating, and that, that doesn't happen at, where I'm at now at Kent. But, those are just kind of the differences is, where money could help a lot.
I would love to be able to switch roles with a private school coach, just for 1 year. I would love it is because if they could just experience what we go through, from fundraising, from how you have to network, from doing the bare necessities to not having a sports budget, figuring out how you're going to go to Jervis camp, how you're going to raise that $12,000.
And the reality is, like, I'd love to wear his shoes for a month or a season as well, right? Because there's, there are, and I think, well, I think what's real is there's times where I could look at his sidelines and go, man, there's some kids over there, right? And there's times where he could look at our sidelines and say, there's other things over there, right? And so the reality is we're all battling something.
We should do this as coaches,
yeah.
And have that open dialogue, because even though, we compete, but we're all going through something similar in some shape, form, or fashion, and I can learn from your experience, and hopefully you can learn from mine, and so forth and so on.
Definitely the key is having the conversation. That's the hardest part, and being open to having the dialogue, and then also being open to the biases that you may have or that you may not see, because sometimes people don't believe that they have any biases, or they don't see race, or they don't see color. But really, like I say, when you open up to have the conversation, you're like, oh, well, hey, that's a different perspective. Well, maybe I wasn't thinking the right way in this situation. So
that's why I think what we all do is so special.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have the ability on our teams to do this grunt work, to do the work in our locker rooms. I think we talk about, like, do we want our country to change? Do we want these things to improve? I think we all do, right? And we have the ability to impact a locker room one at a time.
All right, y'all.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
Thank you very much.
We got to go.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yep.